Hello there everybody. So today I thought I'd sit down and show you some of the equipment we use while we're ghost hunting and paranormal investigating. Now the first thing I'm going to show you, and in my opinion the most important piece of equipment for any paranormal investigator, is a camera. Now the ones we have are night vision capable. They send out an infrared beam and they can see the infrared beam. Not essential to get a night vision camera, however I do think that they are very, very helpful, seeing as a lot of the places we go to are at night or they're dark, so yeah, helpful to have a night vision camera. The reason they're so important is that they will record the whole of the investigation, whereas in the past people would have a notepad and pen and they'd write down things that happened on the night. With a camera you don't need to. As long as it's date and time stamped, you'll be able to just record the whole thing and you have this as a reference point for anything that happened. Not to mention that when obviously things are written down on paper, they can be slightly more biased by the person that's writing them down, whereas a camera will record events as they happen. So yeah, very important. We have quite a few cameras and a lot of them we will also stick on tripods in various places, just locks off cameras to try and record any kind of activity. Second thing, not an essential bit of kit, but we have quite a few of these, and they are just infrared illuminators. They go with a night vision camera. The cameras usually just send out a very small beam of infrared light, so they can't see very far on night vision, but you get a couple of these, and they will just basically, it's just like a big illuminator. They'll shine infrared light out, night vision light, and you can see a lot further in the dark. So yeah, handy to have a few of these. So another piece of equipment you've probably seen on the show is this. This particular one is a K2 meter, but it is an EMF detector. Now EMF stands for electromagnetic fields, and what these bits of kit do is they actually detect that. Now electromagnetic fields are created by pretty much everything electronic. They will create a field and this will pick it up. Now different meters detect slightly different frequencies, but the majority of them are on the lower end of the spectrum, sort of radio wave, microwave area of the spectrum. Now the reason we use them for investigating the paranormal is there's a long-running idea and a long-running theory that ghosts and spirits some way affect the natural electromagnetic field. Now again, it is just a theory, there's no proof behind that. However, I have been able to get really weird readings on these, almost as if something is consciously and intelligently interacting with it. So, you know, they're experimental. They are, like I said, no proof behind what they're being used for, but there is definitely some way that spirits and ghosts are able to interact with this piece of equipment. So another EMF meter we've got, which is quite similar, is the tri-field, natural tri-field meter. Works in a very similar way. However, this has got some slightly different settings. You can set it to radio wave, microwave, which is exactly the same as what the K2 and a lot of other EMF meters will pick up. You can also set it to electric, which will detect electric fields. You can set it to magnetic, which will detect magnetic fields, as it says, or you can set it to sum, which will give you the sum of the magnetic and electric fields. So it's just a little bit more of a in-depth, more complex meter than the other one, but again, its function and the reason we use it for investigating is more or less the same. Next thing, audio recorders. This particular one is nearly as old as I am. I think this is probably an early 2000s recorder, but the function of it doesn't really matter. It's there to record audio, and the idea is that you use this recorder and you're trying to record voices that you don't hear at the time, spirit voices essentially. There's a lot of times on cameras, we've watched back footage on cameras and there'll be voices on the camera that weren't there at the time, and the reason for using this is you can record and while you're actually there you can listen back to it. So it's basically just a fast track way of communicating with spirits. Next we've got motion sensors. Very, very simple. I don't really need to explain these. You set these up, anything that moves in front of them and they will alert you of it. These particular ones have a blue light that will turn on if something moves in front. We've got another set that actually send out an infrared beam across them, and anything breaks that beam, they'll alarm. But generally, yeah, no need for explanation really. They'll just detect movement and let you know if something is in front of them. This here is an EM pump. It will pump out electromagnetic frequencies, the same stuff that the EMF meters detect. Now the reason we want to be pumping this out is, again, there is a theory, and again it is just a theory and an idea, that ghosts and spirits are able to use energy from this to interact with us. And there's been many occasions where we've had our equipment, the power from our equipment drained, camera batteries on various other bits of equipment. And the idea is that we use this to create an electromagnetic field. So instead of the spirit drawing the energy from our equipment, it will draw it from this. Again, it's just an idea, but it's, you know, it's a nice experiment that we could continue to do in the future. Final bit of kit I'm going to show you here is our surface temperature thermometer. I see these get used a lot on investigations. However, they're not used correctly, in my opinion, most of the time. This particular device will detect the surface temperature of something. It will send out a beam, and the beam, whatever the beam lands on, it will detect the surface temperature of it. Doesn't detect air temperature, as a lot of people have been using them for, and a lot of people think. However, they're still useful. You know, if something gets moved or something's touched, you can detect the temperature of it, see if it's cooled down or warmed up after being touched by a spirit. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. All of the equipment I showed you there is what we've collected over a number of years. Like I say, if anybody's looking to get into ghost hunting and investigating, the first thing I recommend you do is get a camera with night vision capabilities and expand your kit from there. Most of the stuff isn't essential, most of it is just, like I say, it's stuff we've accumulated over the years. So yeah, overall the biggest thing you can use is your brain and your head, and go forward from there.